welcome back, PowerHouse viewers and listeners. Thank you guys for joining us. I was a little caught off guard there, to be honest. I was dealing with some phone calls and text messages. Thank you guys for being here. I'll try to get with it and also be here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. It's Thursday.
Me too, I guess.
Yeah, you're here.
I'm just over here like reading whatever's on my screen. So sorry.
So welcome to PowerHouse Fence Show. We are, in fact, here. We are currently live.
Ooh, I need to add the phone number.
We're going to add a phone number there for those who are viewing live. You can call in. You can also comment, which a lot of times we'll address the comments. Thank you all for joining us. As usual, welcome to the show. We're presented by MFC Manufacturing. We're presented by Memphis Fence Company, Simpalo, Thornton Fence Consulting Group, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's it. We do have a link to Tony Thornton Fence Consulting Group. We have a link to their events in the description, so you can check those out. As always, we do suggest that you go to those events. I talked to Kenny when we were in Tunica, and I was like, I want you to go with me to the Fence Business Conference in December. And he said, okay.
Love it.
So
love it for him.
So I think I'd like to try to take Kenny to it and expose him to a little bit of that type of stuff. So
good deal, man.
So that's cool. We're live. We're here. Already kind of talked about all of that.
So today, what have we been listening to, man? What have you been listening to?
I'm still just stuck on Founders Podcast.
I'm doing the same stuff I've been doing. I'm back on the Ram Dass thing.
Yeah.
Which is cool. That's about it. No books. I read a book I call Money Bunny, but it's a kid's book, and it's about a bunny who's learning to manage his money. And his currency is carrots.
Carrots. Yeah, I know the book.
Yeah, I think it was one of the, like, either the Oprah Book Club or the Dolly Parton Book Club.
Dolly Parton, I bet, because we get those for our kids.
Yeah, so that's what Juniper and I have been. Juniper's my 6-year-old daughter, so that's what we read. That's really the only book that I read to her currently. So when we read, we're reading that.
And it's funny how they kind of get like hung up on that book and want to read the same one every day.
Yeah, I think it's cool, you know. And I don't know about y'all, but my kids, when they were younger, and she's still younger, you know, but the older ones, they spend a lot of time with mom, and so there's a lot of, they're very imprinted on mom, and so to get in there and read a book to her at night is it's tough.
Yeah.
So I think it's like that's her version of a schedule or a discipline or whatever you want to call that. You know, it's like, this is what me and dad do, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's cool.
So Money Bunny. But
Bunny.
It's cute. It's like little tiny economics.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the title of the book. I don't know the title of the book. We call it Money Bunny. So
yeah,
that's what
I was just sitting here. I was like, I don't think that's the name of it, but whatever.
That's what we call it.
Oh, that's cool, man.
And you know, what's funny is we were reading the book last night, and she was so emphatic about going to Target to get a toy that day that it reoccurred, and it sparked her. She was like, "Oh, I forgot. I want to go to Target to get a toy," and we couldn't even finish the book, you know, which is funny.
We always read our books at bedtime.
It was bedtime.
Oh, and it was time to go to Target
she
at
stood
bedtime.
Straight up in the bed.
Yeah, we do that every night with our kids, and it's cool.
So.
It's cool. So, the Founders Podcast of the current one is talking about Steve Jobs and Steve Jobs selling stuff. And with that, apparently Steve Jobs was like great at selling, right? I didn't really realize this, but anyways. And so he kind of was like, what Steve Jobs was able to do was present the problem and then show the solution to the problem. And so we've talked about that a little bit today. I started making a slide deck for Simpalo, and I was like, oh, let me try that. Let me start with the problem and then show the solution.
Right.
And so I think I'm going to try to like implement that method and, you know, maybe use the slides as like a little guide or something like that. And use that to start my Simpalo demos.
That's part of my sales process with fence customers, especially, well, residential specifically, is what what do you need this fence to do? Like,
Oh yeah.
are you enclosing a pool? Are
Yeah.
you keeping your kids in? Are the grandkids coming over on the weekend? Do you have a small dog? Are you gonna buy a small dog?
Hmm.
And because that's kind of the way to start. Well, they don't really know exactly. They know they want to fence in, and sometimes they haven't even really thought about it. Sometimes they're pretty clear on the front, but to help get to what is the solution or the problem we're affording us. I hate the word problem, but we got to use it, I guess.
Yeah.
What is the problem or that we're
The
affording you
challenge.
a solution to? Right, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I've kind of had that approach to sales for a while. And in fact, like residential salespeople in the past, I've told them, do not ask them what kind of fence they want. Right. If they tell you, okay. But when you start the interaction with the customer, what do you want the fence to do for you?
Right.
Like, do you want it to provide you privacy, your dog, your kids? Like, what's it doing for you? And then build your whole sales pitch, if you will, or whatever you want to call that, your whole sales interaction, like build it off of what they want the fence to do. So we started with a problem. Now here's the solution. And I mean, that's really kind of a common sense thing, honestly.
And that's also what I do when I plan like my content for social media. It's like for some of the content, it's like, okay, what's your problem? I'm gonna tell you have a problem. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, I actually do have the problem,
Hmm.
but I do have a solution that might help you to fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's how I try to like pass my content so people can see
Right.
that.
Why are you going to take a prescription medicine you don't need?
Right.
If you don't have an ailment, why take the medication?
Right.
So,
So I think in the founders podcast, I don't know if it was from the book that he was reading or where it came from, but he said something like, there's a lot of products in the world. The good products offer a solution to a problem, and the rest of them offer a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, or they're like a solution looking for a problem. That's what he said.
solution looking for a problem.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It kind of like resonated with me a little bit. And man, that's the thing about all of this stuff, like podcast and going to Tony Thornton stuff and all. I mean,
When you said solution looking for a problem, I imagine a machete. So I don't know. There's still part of me in there, but a 12-year-old boy that like I really wanted a problem for that machete,
right.
to the extent that I was going to buy one. Right, like
I
I need one.
I have like a few machetes, and so for the longest time I kept one or two of them in my truck. And it was like, one of these days I'm gonna run across something I'm gonna use this on.
Right, I'm gonna experience some really tall grass.
Right.
I'm gonna need to all of a sudden prepare a coconut drink on the side of the highway.
Right. If I'm gonna break down and there's gonna be a coconut tree, like I don't know what the point of it was,
And
but I had
snakes,
some.
coconuts and snakes.
Yeah.
That's what machetes are used for, I think. Tall grass.
Right. So maybe you break down in the jungle and you gotta like rough it out of there, man.
So I mean, there's a circumstance where that sales pitch works. Really. I mean, you could sell a lot of machetes if you just went to. Well, I wouldn't go to a school, but somewhere where 12-year-old boys hang out.
Yeah,
that's not a school.
I want you to read. I want you to read this email I just got. So first of all, look at the subject line.
Oh,
the subject line is secret. But how weird is that? So thank you, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us, hanging out with us, all of that kind of stuff. We do appreciate it. It's what we do this for, is for you, and try to hopefully share something with you that maybe you could take a little nugget here and there, whatever.
And that's for real.
Yeah.
We mean that.
Yeah.
We mean that for real. We do want to hear from you. Please send us questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, any of those things, please. And also suggestions. I say this a lot. Suggestions of people you'd like to hear on the show, suggestions of topics you'd like us to talk about. If you yourself would like to be a guest, and I just said suggestions of people, but if you know someone you want to be a guest, pretty much at this point, all are welcome. I've really appreciated the people that were kind of fence trade adjacent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not limited to people who actually install fence.
No, not at all.
As one of our viewers pointed out, I personally am a salesperson.
Right.
And I don't install fence.
Yeah. I'm just a little boy that hangs out here.
So, if you don't install fence, but you know about fence, or you are a banker for a company who sells fence.
There you go.
You know,
Anything. I mean, it doesn't matter. We can take little pieces
Cool.
like the stuff from Steve Jobs on the Founders podcast, right? Completely
cool.
detached from fence.
All right, so we're going to do some events this year. The next one that's coming up for us, we just went to the Memphis Tri-State Fence Association annual golf tournament in Tunica, Mississippi. Is pretty cool. I'd like to go back next year and play. I have a suspicion that I'm just like a sleeper golf pro, and I have yet to unveil my talent. So
what's that? The Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess so. I
Yeah.
don't know. I've never played golf, but I just think it's fun to joke about. So our next show will be at the West Coast chapter regional trade show in Reno, Nevada on September 5th through September 7th at booth 516, 518. It used to be, they've changed the floor a little bit. They've added 10,000 square feet. The show is filling up or full probably at this point.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it since they expanded it, but I need to check it out.
And then you got a definite thing you want to attend. You're really hyped about this. The last time you brought it up, you were so excited.
What?
Tony Thornton's business conference.
I just talked about that a minute ago, so I was like, wait a minute. Was I really excited?
I just lied. I was I was trying to give you like a little alley-oop, and I'm nothing.
No, I actually am excited about it though. It's cool, man. I went last year. And
is this the one in Schenectady?
No.
Okay.
So that's the one that's the Super Summit in August.
All right.
This thing it was at Shangri-La.
Yeah.
I think like
Oklahoma.
Monkey Island, Oklahoma last year.
Right.
So I suspect it'll be the same. So Dan Wheeler suggested we do this thing, and we're pretty open to suggestions. So he suggested we do like a little segment of what did Simpalo do for you this week? And Zach, you have a story to go along with that.
That's right. I do. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Yes. Using Simpalo. No. So how this goes within our organization, sometimes I'm given packages of measurements, sometimes photos, and we have different departments, but sometimes we intermingle and it gets kind of mixed up. And so, a chain link estimator, we separate basically into ornamental and chain link, and there's two different estimators for each of those into ornamental and chain link and styles of fence. And so one guy sent me a package, and I just uploaded it into Simpalo and was able to draw on the plans. I don't know if you're not using it, this may not make a lot of sense, but basically I'm able to scan a hand drawing into Simpalo and draw lines on them and input the measurements because it's not to scale, So I manually input the measurements that in accordance with what was listed on the drawing, and then it produced a material list for me for prefabricated ornamental fence. Based on that, I was able to put material prices into Simpalo also, coordinating with the material list, do a little markup on there, all the stuff. Basically, you can add whatever item you want to add. If you want to add a line item for, I'm going to buy some extra stamps or whatever, it's all up to you. So the material cost starts kind of basis as material cost, but then you can add in, like I added in tax on the material, obviously a use tax. So that was one of the things I did. But I'm saying all that to say I went through the whole process of estimating the job, wrote a proposal, sent it, and then the next day the estimator comes to me frantic, like, oh, we messed up. I think I messed up, and we're going to need to adjust the linear footage. But being that the mistake was actually made in a human calculation when he was adding up all the linear footage of each, measurement of fence segment 78, 147, 246, 59, a 28-foot gate, a 24-foot gate, a 16-foot section, came up with 542 linear feet somehow. So we went in Simpalo, said, oh, that's no big deal. I'll just adjust this line and it'll increase all my material cost and everything will adjust just like that, right? So when I added that extra linear footage, I realized that Simpalo had already corrected the problem for me, because when I drew all those measurements in, it added them up for me. So I was 642 feet, 642 feet.
So you didn't have to actually add anything.
I didn't have to add
anyways.
anything because Simpalo checked my math basically.
Right. So adding up the total was irrelevant because you had all the dimensions in there already.
Right.
So
Even if the dimensions were wrong, which is what I suspected at first, it's very easy just to change a dimension on a line. I just rename 100 feet to 200 feet. And guess what it does for me? Adds in all the extra panels, adds in the extra line posts, adds in the extra line brackets, adds in the end brackets if I need end brackets.
right. Yeah.
And
So
then all I do is sync my material and bloop, it updates. And because I'd already put in the price per piece, per each of each piece of material, it would recalculate my material, and my markup's already in there and all that stuff's in there.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, what an easy thing to do.
yeah, that's
you
cool.
know?
So it saved you from the mistake that had been made by human error.
Right. That's correct.
Yeah.
And I typically use Excel to do this, but I gotta say, Simpalo for me is a lot more user friendly, or just like approachable, I guess. Like it's easier to interact with. Wherein I dig Excel, I'm cool with a bunch of crazy squares all over the place with stuff you saw that one I was working in earlier.
Yeah.
And I can work like that, but it is a little bit less confusing, and it's already made.
Right.
Like
So you don't have to like make a spreadsheet or anything, because a lot of times you bid these weird jobs and it's just kind of like some one-off thing. And I've done it many a times where I'm just like, oh, I don't have any kind of spreadsheet that'll work for that. So now I have to make a spreadsheet to bid this one job.
Right.
And normally it's like a complex job, with a ton of different sections of fence and all
Right.
that. But I mean, yeah, I've built spreadsheets just for a specific job. But
Right. You rename a piece of material, or
Mhm.
add a piece of material that's not listed in Simpalo.
Yeah.
You add the cost. There it is. Boom. It's in the total. It's doing that for you.
Yeah.
So those line items for material and cost act as the cells in Excel, basically.
Right.
And I'm selling this. I'm invested in this with you, but I also am probably Simpalo's biggest critic.
Oh gosh. Anyone out there who makes software, you probably don't want Zach to be your customer.
Right.
It's like, oh, hey, why didn't it do this thing right here?
So
What's wrong with
I
this?
gotta say, man, in this circumstance, I was like, oh, this stuff's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, cool, man.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
So it's winning me over slowly. Although I'm using it daily and finding some more. A lot of it's me.
Yeah.
And wanting it to do everything I want it to do.
Like read your mind.
Right. Yeah. Don't you just do what I need?
Right. Why can't I just think this and it happened?
So that was the Simpalo excerpt for the day.
All right.
So
now, tool time. Do you want to? We need like some little sound clips, man. We need a tool time sound clip. So here we are, tool time with Dan. Okay.
That's the sound clip we have.
All right, there you go, listeners. You got
it.
yourself a sound clip. All right, so we use these fence hogs. We've got a couple of them by EZG Manufacturing, the big orange ones.
We've got a couple homemade ones.
We do have, do we actually still have any?
I saw one the other day.
I saw one the other day too, but it was mangled because someone ran it into the beam underneath.
So there's a
roofs.
couple. There's one that's built out of like 1 3/8 top rail. That's like a cage.
Yeah.
And then there's another thing that's basically just a steel pallet with a couple of. There's actually, I think, one post in the center for the spool of wire, and then there's smaller posts around the outside that are like 2 3/8 or 3-inch diameter pipe for barbed wire.
No, actually, what that thing is, we did a job that was like 120,000 feet of field fence, and that's what that is. So you could carry multiple rolls of field fence on there at once, and you just take, one from your magazine and put it in the chamber, so to speak.
Cool.
So that's what that one was. But yeah, so we have handmade or homemade some like wire spinners in the past, but none of them work quite like this fence hog does. Specifically, the big thing is like the fence hog, you open it, you lay it down over the roll of wire and you close it and it picks up the roll of wire for you. and then it's got a large bar out of the side. So as you're driving down the fence line and it's feeding the wire out, it has a bar that keeps it off of your machine,
Mhm.
right? So you don't want you don't want
Otherwise,
the
who's
wire,
doing that? A man?
right? You don't want the wire dragging down your tires or your tracks or anything on the side of your machine.
Right.
And so it has that bar that keeps it held out for you. And then that bar has little teeth. You pull a lever and those teeth flip out and they lock into the chain link so you can stretch it with the machine. And so it has a lot of features that there may be some homemade ones out there that do have features like that. Our homemade ones did not have those same features. So it's really cool. I remember we first bought it. We were doing this big job for the Department of Transportation here in Tennessee.
You know how much these things cost? Speaking of first buying,
Around 10 grand
10 grand. So,
or just shy of 10,000, something like that.
and how many men do you think it takes to operate? Obviously, one's driving.
Yeah, and then you want one like lifting up your wire and hanging it off the top rail behind. So you need at least like a couple.
Right. I'm just thinking like smaller crew. Because we think that a crew can stretch 1,000 feet a day with this, right? Say a poster already set, you go out there.
So
you can
what we did was that job that I was talking about, that DOT job, when we first got these, we sent some guys out with them and it was like, oh, hey, let's see how this thing works. And we sent them out there and it was a crew and they're like, oh yeah, we stretched 1,000 feet today and it's tied off and done. And we were like, huh, there might be something to this thing after all. And they didn't come in here like hunched over with their back hurts. Remember the video I played for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they didn't come over with like all hunched over.
We
and their
didn't
back
need no
hurting or-
tools back in my day. We did it all by hand.
Right.
Because we're men.
And so, man, I mean, it's pretty cool when you can just put an attachment on the front of your machine and these guys go out here and they just stick up 1,000 foot of wire a day and rock and roll. So,
Right.
All right. So let's you want to do some Italian?
Now it's time for a segment we like to call Italian for the Week.
Hold on. Let me back up. So the fence hog. Let me just say the one piece of it that I wish we had is the tilt plate. All right. So if you get on something where you're on a slope and your posts are level and your machine is on the slope, it leans the fence hog out away from the post. The tilt plate, I think it's like another $4,000 or $5,000 option to add on there. But I think we're going to buy at least one of those. And that way you can tilt the whole fence hog to be in line with your level post. It's not something you need every day, but when you need it, like it's a pain in the butt to get that wire pulled
behind
over.
the wall on
that's the DOT
interstate
job I'm talking about.
Sure.
Yeah. So
we acquired a lot of new tools for that thing.
We did.
That job was crazy.
It was. We put up 10 miles of fence through swamplands at the bottom of a 35-degree hill that was 150 foot tall or something crazy. It was madness. We had a mini excavator out there just to pull our skid steers out of the mud when they got stuck every 10 minutes. It was crazy. But anyways, all right.
And now it's time for a segment I like to call Italian Word of the Week with Ilaria Passoni.
Oh boy. The word of the week is struggles, and you're going to see me struggle with the word.
Good one.
Thanks.
Okay. Difficoltà.
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 No, wrong accent. Difficoltà.
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 Yes, good job, Dan.
That was too easy. That's something, there's some kind of irony there that difficult is easy. All right.
But you did it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ilaria.
Should we get into business?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
What do we got on the tap today here,
Well,
Dan?
So first of all, let's give a shout out to Dan and Cannon for their efforts at My Fence Life over the years. Dan did his last episode of My Fence Life last night and is moving on to something else. So, yep, there's the license plate.
My Fence Life.
Yeah. So that was the first time I was on a podcast, was on their show when I
That's
introduced
cool.
Simpalo like February or whatever last year.
Both nice dudes.
Yep.
Both have been extremely supportive of our show and us and welcoming of us and all that. So
yeah.
He's not like dead or anything. He just is not on doing the show. So it sounds all somber, but I mean, so it's good and bad. It's sad to see him go off the show, but he's still around. So
he's going to his own. He's now doing like Dan Blanc Uncensored, I think.
Cool.
which is more of like a business podcast instead of just specific
Right.
defense.
So we'll see more Dan Blanc. He's
Yeah,
not gone for
yeah.
good from the podcast world.
No, I just wanted to give him a shout out, man, and say thanks. Thanks for what you've done. So today in our episode, we're just gonna kind of like share some struggles with you, right? And the title of it, I think, is we're struggling with you.
Right. I'd like to kind of set the tone
Mhm.
and say, eh, I'm going to try my best not to just get into a complain festival here, but I think that we talked about this a little bit today, and we feel like there's some benefit as a business owner, or even, in my position now, where it's often that I think might be doing it wrong, or, not doing a good job, or some of the return or infrequency of closing, or quotes converting to sales, or all that stuff. It's really easy to kind of think that the problem is me, and that this problem, quote unquote, that I'm having is unique to me. And I think part of what I really appreciate from the AFA and the conventions and all that we go to is getting to really talk about our experiences in the business, and we're all having the same kind of experience, right? There's some power in knowing that, like, oh man, yeah, we haven't sold anything in a couple days either, or our phones are slowed down too, or whatever, right? That it's not just us. And so the problem's not me. Therein my, it's inspiration and creativity are restored by knowing that I'm on the path. I just got to keep going, basically.
It always helps me to know that someone else is struggling with the same thing, right? So
That can sound so weird,
Yeah.
like, misery loves company. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying.
Right.
It's that the problems I'm experiencing are not unique to me.
That's right.
Right.
Other people experience the
Right.
same problems.
Right. So you might be actually doing the right thing,
Yeah.
And it just takes time.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of, there's a saying that someone said to me once, was man your post.
Yeah.
And at the moment, that was probably the most inspirational thing I could have heard. It sounds really simple when I said it right now, but I was in some crap. I was thinking about the future of my business and sales and jobs and navigating the market and marketing and all these things. And then basically that was just be there to answer the phone when they call, basically, was what he was telling me.
Yeah.
And stay the course, or whatever, trust the process. There's a lot of ways or sayings that people use to articulate that. Right. So, what were some of the things that we talked about today, man, that are kind of on that level, things that we're experiencing? I did mention call volume, which is accurate for us. That's not just a figurative thing. We are currently experiencing a lower than normal call volume.
Yeah. So can I throw this quote out here?
Let's hear it.
When we come together to share our weakness, we breed community. When we come together to share our strengths, we breed competition.
By Alyssa.
Oh, well, I tried to find who actually, like, someone to cite for that quote, but it just seems to be one of those quotes that there's 1,000 variations of it out there that I couldn't even find who.
So we're going to give it to Alyssa Turbyville.
Yeah, she said it today. We know that for sure. So the first thing, and it's not really a struggle, it's just let's get warmed up a little bit, right?
I love this.
Yeah. No, this is maybe like bordering on a complaint, actually. I'm not sure, but
whatever. We'll start with a complaint. We're gonna get the complaint out of the way.
Okay.
Warning, complaining.
Complaint incoming. So yesterday morning, about a week ago, I got an email from a general contractor. This guy was a superintendent, and he sent an email out to all of the site contractors and says, hey, I want to have a meeting on site on such and such date, or on Wednesday at 10 a.m. And so I was like, okay, well, let's do it. And so I reached out to the guy that's going to install the fence, and I was like, hey, can you come with me to this meeting? So now it's me and an installer going to this meeting. And it's an hour drive to get to this job site. All right. So we go out there. There's 13 people were scheduled to be at this meeting. And we all gather around in our little huddle right there. And basically the superintendent said, does anyone have any questions about the job? And of course, everybody kind of just looked around at each other and was like, no.
Nope.
And then he said, oh, I do want to tell you, like, I'm going to be kind of a jerk about this. And I'm only going to give you this one warning. Make sure you clean up the site after yourself. I don't want to see a bunch of trash laying around. Look at this. When you're done with these bricks, you can get all this stuff cleaned up so we can start backfilling, da 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 da. So clean up after yourself. And then, all right, that's it. I was like,
Yeah.
well, I just drove an hour to this job site to come out here and shake this dude's hand. And
Have you
so,
seen? This is why I love this, because there's a coffee cup that articulates this so well.
mm,
It's a coffee cup, and the coffee cup reads, "I just sat through another meeting that should have been an email."
right? Yeah, for
And that
sure.
happens in the construction world. I experienced it a lot when I was working really close with architects.
Mm-hmm.
They love meetings.
Yeah.
And luckily their shop was really close to mine, and I was having like some what do you call it when you're near starstruck? I don't know how to call that an experience, but I was kind of starstruck. It was a kind of a high profile architecture firm, you know?
Yeah, it was a big deal.
So I was like, I'll go every
Yeah.
time, whatever. But then it kind of gets to where you're like, this is now cutting into the job, the resources I've allocated for the job, and I'm not getting paid. And then when you get into that, and you're talking about taking a installer with you,
Right.
and
So stop installing fence and let's go out here to shake this
right.
dude's hand.
So, but I get it. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe he's new, or maybe he had a bet. Maybe his last job didn't go so good, and he felt like the subs or the contractors took advantage of him to some degree, and he was
Right.
going to lay down the law.
It's just a part of the game, right? And I say like a part of the game or whatever a lot, but I mean, it's a part of doing it, right? So just keep that in mind when you bid a job that's 4 hours away from your office, like, and you get this kind of phone call, just be prepared that it may happen.
Yeah, and after we've developed relationships. I know this company, you've not worked with them before, right?
I don't think so.
But next time you'll be like, I'm going to add a couple hours for extra meetings with Steve the
Yeah.
Super. That's not his name,
Yeah,
so
right.
don't look him up. But
Don't
so
go Google Steve
specifically,
the Super.
So now Memphis Fence is doing a job for the same architecture firm that I mentioned previously,
Mm-hmm.
and I know to allow for that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was talking to a project construction manager
Yeah.
the other day, and that he was talking about like, prices that they get at the property that he normally works at and stuff like that. And I was like, well, it's because y'all are a bit complicated, or like they're a bit complicated. Not to the point that I don't want to do work there, but to the point that I know to be prepared for those type of meetings and for changes to happen last minute and all of that kind of
Changes
stuff.
mid job will definitely, we build it in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I are both, well, obviously now I
Mhm.
do what you tell me to do, but before that, I think I picked up from you that if I can not have to submit a change order, or just do the job through without having to, and just basically foresee all those pitfalls on the beginning to make it cleaner for all of us, where I can just bid the job appropriately and then we go through to the end without that, right?
So that's kind of an interesting topic because it ties into some stuff that we're going to talk about later with, and kind of goes along the lines of bidding a job. So we, I think, do a pretty good job when we're looking at a project and we say, okay, here are the potential issues. Bidding a job right now that's a repair on top of a bridge parapet. For anyone who's listened to this show for the past few months, you'll know we did a job that was on top of a bridge parapet, and it took us a month to put the holes in for the anchors.
right.
We had to core drill a bunch of like 5/8 or 9/16 or something holes in the top of the bridge. Guess what? They're going to get quoted like we're going to have to core drill all of those anchors. But if I'm quoting competitively, the next person's not going to know that, or they're not going to do that. They're just going to assume they can go out there with their hammer drill and cut all the holes. Right. And so I now have added several $100s or whatever it comes out to be into that job as in my quote and everything that goes to them, because I have the foresight of that, as where the next person doesn't, but the next person would give them a change order on the back end. So it's it's a real,
And I've thought that has been an issue before. I've had that question, not before Memphis Fence. I was like, my quote, I don't like the words getting beat, but are people opting or awarding contracts for lower prices and then receiving change order after change order?
Right.
Is that a thing? And I knew a guy that this one person said something like that was kind of his
Hmm.
method of operation. So that's what keyed me into that people do this.
Oh
Right?
yeah, I think there's people that do it intentionally,
Right.
and then I
So
think there's people that do it like genuinely when you just don't realize what you're getting into, like the whole thing of the bridge parapet, right? Situations like that where you just really don't know.
well, and that's normal. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm
right.
in a situation with that now. We're drilling in a wall,
Hmm.
core drilling the wall, and there's rebar that's in the wall vertically. So
Yeah,
the core drill just won't come out.
right.
But luckily, I'm not the one responsible for core drilling in this circumstance. If we
Oh,
were,
nice.
that would suck.
Yeah,
But the contractor is working with the subcontractor who's doing the core drilling to handle that,
yeah,
which, whew,
right. And maybe I'm just a sissy, and I'm like, oh man, we bid core drilling, like we just have to do it. We can't give them a change order because there's vertical rebar in the wall.
right,
And I mean, I have been in situations in the past where I'm like, hey, excuse me, sir, could I give you a change order for that?
right,
And they're like, no. Oh, okay, sorry. You know,
right.
it.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
Yeah, it is. It's a. That's
We
a.
well, they were trying to have me dig a hole like without visible markings.
Mm,
Like the locate was clear, I think, but there were no markings, and there'd already been some conflict with the utilities
yeah.
on the property, and I just was like, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was pretty upset. And I mean, I said it pretty as politely as possible, but I was like, I can't assume the risk
Right.
of digging next to these utilities,
We're
not
not.
with
We're not going to dig up this fiber optic main. I'm sorry,
right, right.
or whatever it is. And
Ooh, I did that once.
yeah,
You
we're not.
probably remember.
Yeah, I'm still trying to
So
pay it
we
off.
do have problems. Man, that was crazy. They brought a little mini excavator out there, and that thing was like they dug the hole so deep you couldn't even see the machine anymore. I don't know why the fiber was 6, 8, 9 feet. I don't know how deep fiber is supposed to be. But what's interesting is we hit it at 24 inches, and then to repair it, they had to go down 8 feet.
Right, because they had to be able to stand up underneath it. Like, what is that
I
about?
don't. They were mechanics.
Oh,
They're used to working that way. I
right.
don't really know. I don't know how that
They
was, and
needed the fiber to be on a
I
lift.
don't think it's funny.
Not
I
funny.
apologize, really. I
Not
know
funny.
that sucked.
Yeah, it does suck. But I mean, you got to laugh about it sometimes, right?
Right.
All right. So Zach's mentioned a couple times that like calls are slow in our business to business world. The call volume and the opportunities that we receive have slowed down. And I mean, it's a bit hard out there right now. And I don't know that there's really a great solution to that. If anyone out there has a solution, please let us know. But what we're doing is we're getting ready to like double down on our marketing efforts and ramp that up and try to get. Hilaria's looking at me like, what? So we're just gonna try to make sure we capture more leads and more opportunities. Kind of the more nets you can put in the water, the more chances you have of catching a fish or something like that. And so we're just kind of taking that approach, and we're receiving less calls, which is generating less revenue, and so we're going to spend more. We're increasing our overhead in order.
Yeah.
So I don't
It's
know.
pretty counterintuitive, but I mean,
Right.
so is stopping pushing the car to put gas in. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're wanting to earn more money in your business, to stop and buy some Palo. I'm just kidding. No, but to incorporate a software seems counterintuitive. Why would
Yeah.
I spend more to make more? But I mean, the age-old adage, it takes money to make money, I guess, is kind of that, or
And I mean, it's that thing. Like you're already behind.
right.
I mean, if you get to the point where you realize that you need software or whatever that may be, need a skid steer, right? And you're like, oh crap, I'm already behind. I don't have time to stop and go spend a day at the dealership dealing with them and getting the machine bought and all of
Man,
that stuff. So I'm
that
just going to
is
keep going.
that is the cycle of growing your business, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always that. It's always we need to exchange this machine for that machine or get a new machine, and then somebody's got to take the time to shop it
Right.
and make sure that it's the right piece of equipment or what. Even
Right.
hiring people, I mean, sometimes
Oh
I
gosh.
need
Yeah.
people, but I don't want to go through 25 applications and call them, then schedule 9 interviews, then get stood up by 8 of them or 7 or 6 of them, do 6 interviews, hire 2 people, have to fire those people, then start all. It's like when I start thinking about the need, I'm just like, I'll just go to the shop and start working.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, all of it's like that, but yeah, it is hilarious. I mean, this conversation, our tangent I'm on came out of we were talking about decreasing overhead, and then our end result was let's spend more money on marketing.
Right. So that's one of the things that we talked about. We had a little, we call it council meeting today,
Yeah.
right? So it's a few of us here. And so we had a meeting today and we're like, all right, let's talk about 4 things. I think sales, marketing, efficiency, and overhead were the 4 things. So in the same meeting, we talked about reducing overhead and increasing overhead.
Right. As a
So,
solution
yeah.
to reducing overhead.
Well, no, that's the solution to increasing revenue, or an idea for
No,
increasing
just
revenue, but anyways, yeah, it was kind of funny. We
But if we
went
buy
around in a big circle.
If we buy new software, we make our office team more efficient.
Oh, right.
Prospectively lowering overhead.
So that was one of the things we talked about during the efficiency piece of the meeting, was getting more software after we had talked about trying to lower overhead. So I'm not very much on trying to lower overhead, man. We talked about it during the meeting
I don't
today.
think Donnie should be allowed to get scented trash bags. We could probably save a couple of cents per trash bag.
We could probably save like $5 a year if we cut that out.
I like the lavender smell.
Yeah.
You can bring your own then.
But I mean, really, I've been around a few other companies, and we're not just like laden with excess devices.
No.
Not everybody, actually. A few people have smartphones and a few people have computers or tablets, but it's pretty concise.
It's not like we're passing out iPads it's Christmas or anything.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and they have 15 or 20, and they're just sitting on a shelf because none of the installers will even use them.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not us. We did just get 2 iPads to give to installers, trying to kind of make a step into being a little more digital with that.
Yes, that is an area of being in the software industry world, and podcast and all that. You may assume that we are the most high tech, but really, it's kind of just like with not even really in the office. It's like me, you, Ilaria, and Alyssa.
That what?
That are making full use of technology.
Claiborne.
Well, Claiborne, right? So a handful of us that's like 5 or 6 out of 30 people.
Yeah, right.
So we still communicate. I still communicate with my installers by way of a paper work order.
Yep. Yeah. So we're just trying to make some moves in that. So the GC bidding world, man, that's a freaking hard one right now, because we're making this big push. Our big push is to expand, and I think we're bidding jobs in like 6 states, and then we're also just chasing this federal work all over the creation, basically. And so, in the past like 5 or 6 weeks, we've submitted like 50 proposals on these jobs, and I was looking over we've got a board on Monday that has all of our bid results and everything, and I was looking over those, and I was like, sure would like to mark 1 or 2 of these as sold.
Right.
So I mean, we're sitting on like 0 for 50 right now.
0 for 50.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty awesome. So there's you a big confession of our struggle with the sales side of things right now.
Right. The business to business, I have had like an influx this week.
Yeah. I think things have picked up a notch or 2 here in the last week or so.
Fielded a few residential calls,
Mhm.
which was cool. So if that's a trend, then hopefully next week we'll be back at kind of our normal pace in that respect.
Yeah.
A lot of the business to business has become these property maintenance companies.
Mhm.
which is a different style, and which is funny because having kind of that uh, drought last week or fewer calls for business to business, I typically am kind of like, the property maintenance company is going to be kind of lower on the list, right? If I can
It's
get
a lower priority customer.
right, which
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't necessarily agree with that thinking, but I'm being honest. That's
I
what
think we've had some conversations and we're really trying to change our output and our opinions and our
right,
efforts in
right.
that.
So but I don't know if you've dealt with them. From my experience, they don't have they're not they don't have as much information, which makes it difficult to
Mm,
bid the job. The response time is slower. It's disconjointed. There's a lot more resources allocated to talking to the representative of the property maintenance company, which, as we just addressed, if it were a high profile architecture firm, I'd be willing to do that. I'd just charge them for it.
right.
So
Yeah, so you sent me a screenshot of an email today that was like, I don't know what kind of fence the client wants. I was hoping that you would go out there and figure it out.
basically,
And that was from a property management company. So,
and that was in response to what do they need the fence to do.
mhm.
So proposing, so I navigated that as cordially as possible by saying, hey, I just told them basically, here's what people who request fence from us typically present to us. And so and I think they had talked to someone else within the organization and didn't get a whole lot of response from them. They were just kind of like, you don't know what type of fence you need, then we're not ready to help you until you can get that. So I was like, here's what we typically get. So if you've received any sort of a cold shoulder or like have that perception, it's because we're really kind of confused and not sure how to help you, right? So if you
Yeah.
could give me a little bit more data, then maybe we could figure out what your problem is in order to supply you a solution,
Yeah.
right? Um, so that's that, I don't know what that really has to do with anything aside from you're hearing me outgrow or walk through a little bit of I don't want to do work for property maintenance companies,
Yeah. So that's some development, man. That's
So
some growth.
right,
Yeah.
it's annoying.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, I mean, but
it's not the way that I like it or the way I'm used to or whatever. It's
yeah, but you can look at everything and say it's all annoying. Right. I mean, if you really want to be super negative. So, where Isaac says some
and you
companies
too.
just need more hand holding, right? For sure. And so yeah, we can look at all that stuff and just kind of be negative about it. But you know what? We got to do it.
That's right, man. We want to make some sales.
Someone is going to do the job, right? And so we may as well be us. Like, let's freaking do it. Let's lay it on them.
Sure.
So in the GC bidding world, we normally see like a lower closing rate, right? A
Right.
no lower closing percentage than we would in the business to business world. So when we're doing kind of business to business stuff, like we send a representative out there, they meet with some representative of the owner, client, whatever that may be. You kind of get like that interaction. You get to kind of know each other and make a sale on yourself. But when you're bidding to general contractors, there's a little less of that opportunity. It's in my opinion, it's a lot more driven by the dollar. Now, of course, there are exceptions to that. Like if you're a fence company that nobody's ever heard of, they're probably and do a residential fence a week, they're probably not going to award you a $5 million contract.
Right.
So I mean, there are those exceptions, but also, I think that it's a lot of I think it's very driven by the money. So like I said, we normally see a lower closing rate in that area, anyways.
Who was it? Tony that said if they're choosing you based on your price, you're not giving them anything else to base their decision on.
I don't know who said that, but that's pretty interesting concept too.
And so it works. You mentioned this personal aspect or interpersonal aspect with meeting with a representative of the company, or even if you can meet with the property maintenance company or
Mm,
whoever.
yeah.
But in the GC bidding element, we don't have that.
So deliver wow.
Right.
You can deliver wow business to business. You can deliver wow to property management people because there's a lot more interaction.
Right.
But what's your wow? Let's see. The details in your proposal or presentation can win you the job. Maybe just include cut sheets for your materials. So include
That's from
drawings.
Isaac. That's a comment from Isaac for
Yeah.
those listening.
Sorry. Yeah. So include cut sheets with your proposal. So that's interesting. Maybe have to try that. Just give them a little bit more information.
Yeah, I want to include a bottle of
Wine.
yeah, I wasn't going to say wine,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Send them some branded cigars like we were
Yeah,
talking
I was
about
thinking
today.
a bottle of Woodford Reserve,
Yeah,
like
right.
give them some decent whiskey.
Yeah.
Maker's Mark,
Yep.
Buffalo Trace.
Right. So at the end of the day, we'll sell jobs again. We'll hit our goals this year, right? We
Right.
just have to like lower our head and stay focused and keep going and keep pushing. And we're going to get out there and we're going to sell them. It's going to happen, right? We just got to work for it. And so right now it seems to be like we just have to work a little bit harder than we have in the past. So with all of this stuff, I talked to Tony Thornton today and I was like, man, feels like we're doing something wrong over here. Like it's hard to stay motivated. It's hard to stay focused when we're having these issues selling stuff.
Right, which brings us to the topic of the show. And like the spirit of the show is when you're in these positions and you think we must be doing something wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, so Isaac pointed out that you can include cut sheets. We're not doing that, but we
No.
do have a pretty darn attractive proposal presentation.
I'm pretty particular about the presentation
Right.
and the professionalism. And I was actually made some comments to Zach earlier about some stuff like not being lined up on
Right.
the change order proposal he was doing. And so I'm kind of a stickler about all that. Like I want our proposals to look super nice.
Right, but it's easy, and those are pretty simple things. I mean,
Mhm.
that could help us out. But so realistically, this idea, you mentioned it, that Tony, help. We're doing something, we've got to be doing something wrong, right? And that's what the spirit of the show is. Like, if you're having that experience, it really helps to be like Tony, say, oh no, man. I think one of the first times the first time that I was aware that you had spoken to Tony, it was about numbers.
Mhm.
And you showed him.
Yeah.
You let him in and showed him your numbers, and he was like, "Oh no, man, looking good."
Yeah, no, he sat down and he looked through our financials and stuff like that, and kind of checked it out in the way that I was bidding jobs and all of that. And he's like, "No, I think you're doing everything you're doing right. Like your margins are where they need to be. You're doing what you need to do." And so today, that's kind of what he said again is like, "Man, just stay the course. Keep your margins where they need to be for your business." And when you have a truck that rolls out, that truck needs to be producing revenue at the margin that you need.
Right.
And lowering those is just not sustainable over the long run. But I will tell you, when you're looking at a job and you're like, yeah, man, I kind of want this job. Like, can I just cheat a couple points off this margin so I
Right.
get the job?
That's
Like,
right, man.
it's hard.
It's definitely easy to quiver a bit and make concessions,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So we gotta stick to our guns and we gotta hang in there and we just gotta keep focused and keep doing what we're doing. But let's circle all the way back to some episode we did before when I was like beating on everybody about knowing your numbers, right? You hear that all the time. Very important time to really actually know what is your overhead.
Yeah. So if you can make concessions in your cost, if
Mhm.
you can or have room, then you will know,
Right.
right? I mean, that's the whole thing. Not just like, oh well, I'll give you a 10% discount
Right.
or a 20% discount.
Right. And if you don't know that you can afford to give that 5, 10, 20% discount, whatever it is to sell the job, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
So again, it's super important. Know your numbers, know what your overhead is, watch your finances, and like don't just rely on how much money is in the bank. That's not telling you what you need to know. And it's never too late to start.
You screwed up.
I did, man. I screwed up. So this is our next
I wanna
topic of conversation.
talk about this.
It's confession time with Dan.
Wow, it's always me in the hot seat,
No,
the
no.
new guy.
Yeah.
And just getting obliterated by the boss man.
Nope, not today, sir. It's your turn. So, man, we've talked about schedules and like watching the schedule.
Scheduling.
Oh my goodness, we've talked about it so much. Oh, hold on. We got another comment from Isaac. So Isaac says, I think you're experiencing something that's industry wide. And then he says, if your backlog gets real low and the job is in your wheelhouse, you can get a few jobs a little cheaper. So,
Okay. Thank you.
man, thanks for commenting, Isaac.
Yeah.
Feel free to reach out.
Oh, we got another comment.
Oh, Brian,
Brian T.
can you do an episode on an easy way to know your numbers or a simple procedure to figure it out?
Yeah, let's do that. We talked about it some, but we should do one.
Yep.
Maybe I'll do one since I'm, kind of a layman in the numbers game.
So I can teach you.
Right.
And everyone else can watch?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do that. All right. So I screwed up. And we've talked about schedules a lot. We've talked about staying on top of the schedule, knowing when the jobs are coming and all of this. Well, we have a job and it's a Maristar Matrix something or another.
Which is an anti-climb welded wire mesh.
High
right?
security, anti-climb, all of that kind of stuff. Yes. And turns out it has a 12 to 14 week lead time and it's all custom built. And turns out the contractor needs it sooner than 12 to 14 weeks.
Right.
And so this actually was the same contractor who we went out and had the meeting just to say hello kind of thing. And so he was a new superintendent that was brought on.
I bet you wish you took him some donuts to that meeting.
I wish I would have. You ain't lying.
This meeting sucks, but it would have been a really good opportunity to kiss this guy's ass so he's not pissed at how long the material is going to take.
Let me just go ahead and start doing some sucking up early so that he's not going to yell at me as much when he finds out.
Well,
and so we, just to be clear about that, like, I'm not trying to hide from him. We still don't have a definitive answer on what the lead time is.
Right.
So some folks at Stevens Pipe and some folks at Ameristar are kind of trying to jump through some hoops for us to help us out to try to get the lead time trimmed down to where we can be there when they need us.
This job's on Procore. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And the fault is that you just didn't think to look for the schedule. Did you say that already?
I can tell you I've probably done, man, I don't know.
Don't try to
30 jobs that are on Procore, right?
Don't try to misdirect here.
No.
You're throwing them off the scent. Like the schedule.
Let me tell you about something else, not what Zach's asking.
The schedule is on Procore.
It is,
and you
indeed.
just overlooked it.
I just never looked at it, actually. Yeah.
Right.
And it's the first time I've ever seen a job that actually had a full schedule on Procore. When I went on there a few days ago, I was like, oh crap, there's a schedule. Oh
That's
crap.
Pretty cool though.
There's our fence. Like, I need to find out when it's going to be here. And yeah, it is cool. It was really nice. It had the whole, like a schedule that you would see kind of, maybe in the project manual or with the contract or something like that. The full thing.
Damages in the contract?
Yeah, I'm sure. I didn't look at that. All right.
I didn't look at that either. In fact, what contract?
I don't remember. So it even gets worse. I signed the contract 14 months ago or something. So
all those cool things we tell you on how to run your commercial business, it's because we know what it's like when you don't do it.
That's right.
That's what we started. When we started the podcast, we were like, let's just basically tell them how we screwed up so they don't have to. Hopefully,
right. That's the objective here, man. We're going to tell you the mistakes we make so you can do it the right way.
Right.
Or not make the same mistakes at least.
Right. Or, know that you can make some mistakes and still be okay in the end too.
Yep.
I mean, that's a thing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, don't worry. We're screwing up too,
And so I think we might be okay in the end of this thing. It's looking like the material may be able to get here in time for us to show up and get the job done when we're scheduled to do it. Like I said, some folks are trying to jump through hoops to try to get it done for us, which I sincerely appreciate if any of you are listening. But yeah, we're trying to bail me out basically. And
I joked around about, an opportunity to bust Dan's balls or whatever, but I don't think it's that big. From where I sit, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I have honestly, I have high faith that it's all going to be fine.
Yep.
I think the contractor will be amenable, even if we are a little later than usual or than their schedule. And I think we've been through a lot of circumstances where it was like, oh my God, this is that bridge was like the talk of the town when we were doing it.
Everyone in the city was talking about it.
Well,
not just us.
at least our whole company.
Yeah.
And everyone, all of our contacts at Hilti.
Right. Yeah. Half of Hilti was talking about it. All of us, every cordial outfit in town was talking about
Right.
it.
Man, you heard about that dang bridge. That's that
Uh-huh.
old concrete. It's hard.
Yep. It was but I mean, at the end of the day, we got the job done and everything was
And
fine.
everything's cool.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're like, excommunicated from the fence industry or the construction world at large.
I mean, the worst part was I didn't sleep for a week. I bought a blood pressure monitor that now sits on my desk. And I'm like, oh no, this job is going to be the death of me.
I just got to be transparent. That's my worst fear, is that I'm going to make whatever mistake it is where it's like, not only do I get fired from Memphis Fence Company, but just the construction industry as a whole.
Just blacklist
Zach Shoe.
To be fair, that's also me.
Yeah.
I'm like, sometimes he texts me, he's like, one time he texted me, he was like, did you mean to post that? And I was like,
oh no, I'm done.
No. I was like,
I'm ruined.
Probably not. And I shouldn't
I'll
have
never
it.
work in this town again.
I can take my stuff and go home.
So, I mean, ultimately what it all boils down to is we're not delivering the customer the experience that I want us to deliver.
Right.
We're not delivering what I expect.
Right.
And even if it all works out in the end and like we slide in there just in time and we get the fence put up and everything, it's not what I want us to deliver. It's not how I want us to be represented, and I'm not happy about it.
I felt like that before, and I approached the contractor with that explanation, and he was like, I don't really know it. Okay.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't, not like dismissive. It was like he wasn't as affected by it as I thought he was, right?
Right.
I thought they're like these jackleg son guns, and then he was just kind of like, oh man, okay.
Right. Yeah, but like I said, I think I honestly beat myself up.
Right.
And I mean, I try to I have pretty high expectations for what happens inside this organization.
Sure. Well, and in that circumstance, I think there's value in addressing the contractor or the superintendent, just saying, hey man, this is not really how I like to do things, and make an apology and then a commitment to just kick ass going forward.
Yep.
Like this material thing is kind of a thing, but once we're over this, I promise we're going to leave this job and you're going to be super happy with the end result or whatever, something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I will do.
Right. Take ownership for the fault and then make a commitment to do better.
So address the problem and give them a solution.
That's right, baby.
There we go. So, yep. And right now I'm just waiting on like a definitive lead time before I start having those conversations.
Right.
And you just go to them with your hat in your hand and you're like, sorry. But I can tell you 100% hiding from all of it and waiting and just ignoring it, that is not a solution to anything.
I have my sales rep as steel vendor was out of town for a couple days, and the guy who was helping me in interim was basically hiding. Right. So he's like,
oh yeah, nice.
Like, hey, is this piece of material going to get here tomorrow? Yeah, I think so. If it's not going to, I'll let you know. The next day, nothing.
Yep.
And then, hey man, that order I placed with you a couple weeks ago had a couple week lead time. Are we still looking for the end of this coming week? Yeah, I'm going to double check, but I think so. And I'm like, so I wanted to say to him, I didn't say this. I wanted to say, like, it's okay to say, I don't know. Hold on. I'll get you an answer.
I'll find out is the acceptable response.
Right.
Some version of that.
Right. I mean,
wait, we did a whole episode on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. So what I did do is I've been copying my sales rep and all the threads, and then he actually ended up replying to me before the other guy. And I was like, man, thank you so much. And the other guy, I think you could stand to take a couple lessons from this guy in customer service, that it's not appropriate or okay to ghost a customer.
Yeah.
Basically.
Suck it up. Say sorry. I screwed up. Whatever it is. And just to own it, man.
Yeah.
Extreme ownership. Own it.
Let's get on down. So we are on a constant journey, an adventure, mind you, a pilgrimage.
The pilgrimage for the ultimate process and system.
Right. That's right. So in response to my request for Dan to establish, what did I want? I wanted to have a board.
You want everything.
I wanted to have.
What do you mean?
I wanted to have a board. I wanted things to be more.
You wanted us to be Google.
To be fair, he has said that for a year. So I think he really wants a board.
I wanted a board.
I gave him a council.
I got a council.
We compromised.
Right. I wanted to elect positions for said council.
I appointed positions. Again, we compromised. So,
Well, we have loose positions. They're kind of like as needed positions, which
like
is cool.
like today when I was like, "Oh, who's going to be chair on this?" And I was like, "Oh, you are."
But so that's typically in Robert's Rules of Order, you as the chairperson would appoint an ad hoc, which was a special committee.
That's what I did.
And that's normal. That's right. So
Okay.
you're doing it. You're
Okay.
doing it.
Cool.
And now Lynn is acting as secretary.
Yeah.
So we're in there. We're doing it.
She was doing her doodle notes today.
So in our
for
council meeting, we talked about, we already mentioned this, but again, we talked about increasing
Revenue.
sales. Yes, increasing revenue and sales. We talked about efficiency, increasing efficiency, ways to do that. Many ways. One, eliminating paper writing and redundancies within the way we collect and manage data.
Oh yeah, what did we figure out? Some jobs we had to enter the name and contact information like 5 or 6 times.
Man, and that's what my biggest complaint in my process was, why am I typing this over and over and
Right.
over? Why am I filling out a form on Monday, which is our project management software, and then also making a PDF form of the same information? Why can't it auto-populate? So we found a plugin or an app that integrates that now is producing the PDF.
Right.
Which some of the other project management softwares do that for you, but ours just didn't. So, it did. We just didn't exactly know how. So,
yeah, I think we had to use like some add-on kind of stuff to work with it.
And then we talked a bit about overhead and where can we cut overhead. And I came up with the only overhead that I could see that was very visible to me was my own salary, which I didn't really want to, as the council, suggest that we cut my salary.
Scented trash bags.
That was what, yeah, that's right. Scented trash bags. But I mean, I honestly
no, for real, what we came up with was like, we've got more freaking trucks than we need. We've got a collection of old trucks that are kind of just sitting here. Some of them have been for sale for a while. Some of them are not listed for sale, and they just sit here and we pay insurance on them and we maintain them and we do all of this. And I'm like, let's just get rid of some of this crap.
That's right.
So that was actually like the best, not to like take credit in the best idea, but I mean, I really think that was like the only viable thing that we came up with for cutting overhead.
I was kidding about office salaries and scented trash bags. Both of those were jokes. The office salaries is definitely a place that we can look. Are we top heavy? It's
a lot of money going in there,
but is it necessary? Right.
Right.
And obviously, I mean, I'm being honest in that I'm offering myself up to look at, is this where an area is? Is this that area? But whatever. So, yeah, the trucks, the insurance, carrying insurance on the trucks, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. We have insurance and, like I said, doing maintenance and all of those things. So that's a real thing to try to cut some out of. And then
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to change the subject a little bit.
Me too.
Okay. Well, I would just like to make a confession and I don't know, maybe clarify some stuff, but I'm not going to put very much energy or time or effort or anything into messing with overhead. Obviously, if you have some like large waste that's going on in overhead, that's great.
The other thing that we discussed was the podcast.
Yeah, right. Right. So this overhead, which I mean, we're doing it for you, listeners. Just keep that in mind, right? we're doing it for you. And I was like, I don't really know that I want to cut that out. But anyways,
I've come up with all kinds of ways to justify this podcast financially. And so, one is like, we don't have a Google AdWords cost
today, but we might next time.
Well, then we'll look at the podcast then.
Yeah. Right. No, we're not quitting the podcast.
Oh, no, I'm not. Yeah, right. Exactly.
No.
We'll quit building fence.
Yeah. Yeah. We're meant to be podcasters. All right. So just kind of back to what I was saying. I don't care about cutting overhead, right? That's not a main focus for me. That's not a place that I'm going to spend a lot of time. there may be some low hanging fruit. So I will go through the overhead. I'll pull up our P&Ls, I'll pull up our financials, I'll sit there, I'll go through the overhead and kind of look into things, look how things are trending.
Right.
But you're not gonna move the needle by saving $20 a week on your trash service. Right? It's not making a big enough difference that it really matters in our situation. Percentages are a massive way to like level that. So regardless if you're doing 100,000 a year, 100 million a year, like you can talk in percentages and probably, kind of all be on the same playing field with that.
Right.
But,
Right.
but anyways, no, like saving a few dollars here and there is not anything that I get excited about. Over the course of the last 11 and a half-ish years, I've always preached revenue, 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 revenue. Right. And so that's where my main focus is. That's where our main focus will be, is going to be increasing revenue, increasing the opportunities we have to bid jobs, increasing sales, whatever you want to say. And that's what we're going to focus on. We're not going to focus on trying to save
Right.
money on trash
I was
service.
talking to a friend about family finances,
Hmm.
and we're just kind of talking about what that's like. And hey, what's up, Shane? And
Yeah. I'm going to talk some crap to Shane.
so this is where we're at. If money's the problem, right? So I'm not trying to like cut back on the cost of my family's toothbrushes and toothpaste.
Right.
And I'm certainly not, I mean, obviously things like eating out is a thing you might look at, but I'm not going to compromise our grocery bill in order to balance the budget, right? So
Right.
what we got to is, it's like, if money's the problem, go get more stinking money.
Yeah. I
Right?
mean, to an extent, again, like if you're spending $100,000 a month on a private airliner,
That's not what we're talking about. We're
right?
talking
I
about
mean,
if you already have if you're familiar with your numbers, you know
mhm,
your budget is conservative, then don't start cutting fixed expenses.
right.
Like, that doesn't make sense,
Mhm.
right? So that's it, man. That's
Right.
it. That's what we're doing. And that was where we walked out of the council meeting, was like, all right, go team, go. Let's go get more money.
Let's go sell.
Right.
Figure out how we're gonna sell. So we've got a few things up our sleeve that we're gonna do. We're not gonna get into that right now, but we do have a few things up our sleeve. We're gonna try some things a little bit different. Try to kind of boost our market share, boost our sales, our opportunities. Really is the biggest thing we can try to push. But I mean, if you're selling 30% of the opportunities you get, the more opportunities in theory, the more sales, right? So
Right.
we're
You got
we're
some
heading
beef
down
with
that path.
Shane? You have beef with Shane that I'm unaware of.
I was just gonna ask Shane how he got stuck in Dallas for 3 days, right, or 2 days, or whatever it was. So he was trying to leave Dallas. Flight was delayed, and he
Yeah,
was
they had a tornado or something happening pretty bad. Or like tornado warning and it was raining a lot. I don't know. I saw it on social media, but I didn't dig too much into it because I was I'm too far.
maybe. So he was stuck in Dallas for like 2 or 3 days, and like Dallas is one of the busiest airports there are. Like, how do you get stuck there and can't get back to Indianapolis? So, anyways, I was just gonna mess with him. It's not really beef, but
Oh, okay,
it was
right on.
interesting.
Cool, man. I'm excited. And so next week we are gonna pre-record, right?
No,
Oh, my bad. I thought for
we
some
are
reason.
gonna we are gonna record an episode next week, but it will
Okay.
be aired later.
I'll be there. So that's all that really matters.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
sometimes that's all I am here, is just here.
Yeah, me too. And I just ramble and get on a soapbox every now and then.
Well, I appreciate all who joined us for the show. Those are all listening. Thank you, Brian T. Fredrickson, for the suggestion on a topic for a podcast.
Can I copy?
I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Isaac, for all your participation, man. It's been cool. And Shane for stopping by and saying, hey. Anybody who's out there listening to this after it's aired, thank you all for listening. It really means a lot to us to see all the downloads and everything, and that's pretty cool. That's really the only way that we know that we're actually accomplishing anything. So thank you all. Again, if you have any insight, suggestions, people you'd like to see on the show, you want to be on the show, all are welcome. Reach out to us via any of the social medias.
Yeah, for sure.
And thanks a ton. thanks a ton and good night.
Yep. Thanks for being here. And I think we're getting out of here.
Adios. Thank you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
I said bye to you. Bye to them.